let's set up our first ability. It will be sprinting. This ability will be a passive ability, which will have an execution condition. It will be channeled and it will have a custom channel conditions. And it will modify values on our character on both client and server in safe way, so it doesn't allow cheating. Let's jump in. Okay, first of all, let's create our first ability. When you right click and have the able ability plugin enabled, you will see that there is a context for able, and you can make able ability blueprint. And you can have obviously child blueprints, so our first ability will be just an able ability class. Let's call it A, like ability underscore sprint. And this will be our sprint passive ability. Let's open it and see how it looks like. First of all, we need to check what class we are using for our preview. We're using a character class. We'll not wait for the assets to search for any eligible and just go forward. And we'll set our preview asset by hand as able character. Okay, and now we have a preview asset. And we have task properties, but we don't have any task. And we have the ability general properties, as well as the timeline, which is this visual editor, and a graph, which is whatever you do on the backend of those abilities. This ability for now doesn't do anything, so let's make something on ability start, and we'll do just print string start. Doesn't matter what the context is. And on ability end, we also do a print string end. Now, if we go into our character, we haven't made anything regarding execution of those. So let's go and add in our project settings some inputs. Let's make an input, which will be an action input that we'll call sprinting. This way, this input can be accessed directly by name, and it doesn't matter what key we are using. We'll be using left shift, right shift, and because I like to debug all of my assets on a controller, we'll also use a gamepad left thumbstick button as shift. Okay? And now we go back to our character and we can right click, sprint, and we have an action event sprinting. Let's change its name back to sprint. Let's go back here and it should, okay, you have to update it by hand. Sprint. Okay, we have sprint. Now, to execute an ability, we need to get our component. We need to create ability context. From this ability, we need an ability object from class. And we need an owner instigator, which for both of those will be just self. So this character, able character self. And then this need to execute, activate ability. And now we will make this a macro. Execute ability macro. Now in this macro, we'll also go here and return this. And we'll also expose the class that we are trying to run. Let's go back to our tutorial. So on input action sprint, The class we want to use is a sprint. Compile, save, and now on shift we should be running our sprint ability. Start, end. Start, end. Whenever I hit shift, it will just go start, end, and nothing will happen. There is a delay between start and end because the ability itself is being set to have 1 second length. You can specify the length of the ability here. So we know that it is executing and it is running. Let's make some small changes. First of all, I will disable any debug so we don't have too much happening on screen with the debug of other components. And now inside sprinting, we'll not do anything else and we'll work on the ability itself. So, what do we need? This ability is 1 second ability and this is fine for us. We want this ability not to be active but be a passive ability. The stack count doesn't really matter, so let's set it just to 1 and not be able to stack it further. If we would wish to, we could make additional stacks, and with each stack our speed would increase, for example, or we'll start consuming more stamina or do something else. The ability is looping, and you can specify that a loop doesn't include the entire ability. Why you would want to do that is because you might have custom tasks that you want to execute only once and not be included in a loop. This ability doesn't require any target because we are the target itself. The ability is channeled. Channeled means that it is checking on tick for a specific condition that would allow us to continue the ability or end it. We can also say that if we fail our channel, the failed channel result will be interrupted, branched, decayed, or successful. In our case, it is successful. Channel condition will be between custom, which we can specify in blueprints, input, or velocity. We'll make it both input and velocity. Our input that is required for this ability to continue is named sprint. You can also make it negative, which means that you must not make this channel condition in order to fill it. So for example, you could make, if you do hit certain input, then it would stop being channeled. Now on velocity, we'll specify the velocity threshold minimum required for sprinting not to end. Our character is currently moving with, let's see, our movement speed is 360 maximum, and we want trigger of sprinting to start executing at something around 300, I guess. So let's make it 300. Or actually, let's make a binding for that. This binding giving us the context of the ability from which we can get, for example, instigator. And this instigator is our pound, so we can run any function on it and get any value that we want. So we could do that, or we can specify this as a variable, and we'll do that. Mean speed to sprint. Now we'll compile and we'll make this value 300. We'll make another function, which is an override function, can ability execute. This is one of the most important functions for any ability. This is the ability that is making checks on the server side and on the client side, but mostly on the server, to verify if an ability can be executed. You see, any hacker that is hacking your game and is accessing directly the memory and directly inputs and directly any custom events and functions, he can execute any ability from context, and the only thing that is protecting you from cheaters is this event, and making sure that the server can verify if an ability wasn't only executed correctly here, but it should be executed correctly here. So for example, min speed to sprint, and we can get our instigator. Our instigator we can cast to character class. I try to avoid casting, but oh, you know what? We should avoid casting. This is not a very good way to do things. So let's go here to blueprints, interface, and we'll make a new interface. And we'll call it BPI abilities tutorial. Okay. And in abilities tutorial, we'll do a get velocity, which is an output of velocity. And velocity is a float value. Now this function is a character function. I will just hold it like that. We'll now add new interface, which is the ability tutorial interface, compile, and now we have access to our interface. Okay, that's strange. Maybe it's because of the naming. Yeah, probably. We can get velocity of an actor directly here, so it doesn't matter. And we just make sure that it is greater length value is greater than minimum velocity. If it is greater, then we can start, and we are not checking z velocity value because we don't care if our character is falling very fast, right? We just care for his actual grounded locomotion. And yeah, we don't need this for now. We're just doing this. And yeah, that's it. So let's see. Let's play. Save our ability. Now I'm standing still. I'm holding shift. Nothing happens. We don't get our print string. I am moving, and we get that start and immediate end, which means that we failed our channel condition. The speed to check the actor velocity against, maybe it should be negated. Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, now it works correctly. So apparently, when we are checking speed, we are checking if our speed is not greater, because yeah, this is a velocity threshold. It's actually even in the name of this condition. So yeah, we need to make a binding now and just get this minimum speed. And this is 300. And it should continue to work properly. Start and start and start, and let's... Okay, we hit end because of our deceleration. And once we hit an obstacle and stop moving, it also goes to end. That's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Okay, let's go back to our ability, and now we will need a function which is change sprinting, or just set sprinting. Now we go into our character, and in our interface we got set sprinting. Let's implement this function, and when we are sprinting we're getting our character walk speed, set max walk speed, and we cannot have any forward value here because that would allow someone to possibly cheat. So what we have to do here is make a select. No, actually we'll make just a boolean value on the input. Okay, and now this will be select, and if we are sprinting, then sprint speed, and we're not sprinting, then it's our walk speed. Now both those values should be exposed, and let's compile. There should be replicated values, so our server has authority over those values. Let's make our walk speed 320, and let's make our sprint speed 600. Let's take this from here, go to our tutorial, and just add it to our sprinting and compile. So let's see what will happen once we start sprinting now. Nothing, okay, because we haven't set up anything in the ability itself. So on our event graph, on ability start and end, we'll actually get from context instigator. From this instigator, we already know that he is implementing interface, so we'll just set sprinting. If the instigator doesn't implement this interface, nothing will happen, so it doesn't hurt us at all. And then we copy that. We need to use context that comes from a different execution, so there's that. Unless now we cannot access context in a different way. Okay, so there's this, and this is a no. And if the ability is either interrupted or branched but still ends, we want this to trigger, so we want to change this walk speed. Let's save, and let's now run it. And we are sprinting. If we hit obstacle, we stop sprinting. And if we make a sudden turn and we slow down too much, we also stop sprinting, so it works. There's no lag in execution, there's no location correction, it just works perfectly as should. Because it's being set on the client and on the server in the same way. Able is incredible, it comes down to replication speed, because the only thing that it's actually replicating is the object class as a reference. So it's only just replicating not even the entire context, but just context information and the class of the ability. And this class is then creating an object on server, and those objects are already loaded into memory, and then it's being checked if it can execute, and it then returns to our client component that we had properly executed the ability. It should either draw back or continue execution. So let's make another thing. Let's make a resource, and let's make a deplete this resource. So let's make a variable. We will call it stamina. Let's make it a float value, default of 6. And we need a new function. This function will be called float value region. And this float value region will have an input of value, which is float value, which is passed by reference. So that changes the way it looks, and I will explain this in a second. Then we'll do another one, which is maximum, which doesn't have to be passed by reference, but we can make it pass by reference. And we also need current. Increase per second. Okay. And increase by second is also passed by reference, and we'll have a return. And what we'll do, we'll take this value and we'll do a set by reference, and that means that whatever is input here, it's not a value, it is a reference to a value, and we will set this value in certain way. So we'll get this, we'll add increase per second, multiply by word delta time, we'll add it to the value, and then we'll clamp this float between 0 and maximum value, and we'll set this reference, and we'll end the execution. Okay? And why did we do it like this? Is because in future we'll have more than just stamina in this example, but now we just have stamina, so we'll do event tick. And on tick we have delta seconds, and we have stamina, and let's say that we have a flat stamina region of 1 per second. Okay, so let's do a float region, execute. Stamina is the value, maximum is make literal float of 6, and increase per second is also make literal float value of 1. Those literal values are also being saved in the memory, a similar fashion that our normal variables are. The only exception is that if we do not use them and they are not being referenced anywhere, they will be destroyed by the garbage collector. We could as well push forward the delta seconds, but delta seconds for this actor might be different than the word delta seconds. So just make it like that. And let's make any visualization of our stamina. So we'll need a new function, which is get stamina, and it has just an output of stamina, float value, and ratio, which is also a float value. Let's make a new interface, widget, UI stamina, and that will be just a progress bar. This progress bar will be pinned to here, and it will be 0.5, and this is 0, 0 position, and this will be 1, so it's here, and it will be wider, so let's say 500 by 40, that's fine. And what we need is the percentage, create binding, get owner, get own, get owning player for this widget, get pawn, get controlled pawn, and on this pawn we will just get stamina message, and in this message we'll just push forward the ratio, and that's it. And in our character we just do this get stamina, and we'll push stamina and stamina divided by, well, let's make it a value, max stamina, and this is obviously a replicated value, and stamina is a non-replicated value. Now if we go back to tutorial, instead of this we can now use our max stamina. Let's make this a value as well. Stamina region, which is also a replicated value. Now, why we don't replicate stamina? Because in this way we have stamina version on the server and on the client itself. And because we are setting it on tick, we would be replicating this value 30 times a second, at least. This is the default tick time of server. So we would make 30 replication of each stamina per each player for each player. So with just 2 players we have to do 4 replications per second of single float value, which is useless for us. And because this stamina is being regen in the same speed, in the same way on both server and client, if we reduce it on server and client, we'll have at least very similar value, and once it gets to the maximum and gets clamped, it is exactly similar value, so it doesn't really matter. This way we are saving ourselves some networking speed. Okay, so we got this, we got stamina, and now on begin play we need to also check if we are local player. We already got a function for that we created earlier, and the function is very simple, just checking if it's locally controlled and player controlled, and that's it. Local player, branch, and now we're not doing it on begin play, we'll be doing it on a different event, which is possessed. Oh, so we don't even have to check for local value, because for this controller, local. Okay, yeah, we can do it like this. So if this actor gets possessed and it is possessed by a local player controller, yes, then we just make widget. Uh, no, create widget. Yeah, create widget. Jesus. Okay, the owning player is get player controller 0, because if we are local player controller, then get player controller 0 returns our player controller, and this is stamina. Add to viewport, and that's it. Okay, and let's see, save. If we can even, let's test it faster, and let's go into advanced settings, and let's make it single thread, so it's a lot faster. Run under one process, yeah, this way it will be faster. So let's just test it as one, as client for now, and let's see if we even got our UI added. No, we haven't. Do we get an error? Yeah, we do get an error. there should be a valid check. Okay. And that's it. We don't get any other error. That's strange. Oh, okay. We also need to... no, we already got that. Okay. Let's see. On possess is local player controller. If true, let's skip that. Let's see if it gets created this way. Okay. Okay, let's just do it differently. A bit simpler, to be honest. Custom event, add widgets, and it's run on owning client only. Okay. And that should be it. Oh, it's still not getting added? That's interesting. Maybe now? Okay. Okay, yeah, now we see our stamina. So we're gonna do this. It's not in viewport because it's trying to be added twice for some reason. Okay, now it works. So let's make our sprint deplete our stamina. So let's go into our timeline and let's think how we want to implement this, because we wanted to deplete stamina by certain value. So what we can do, we can, for example, change the region value on the character so it becomes negative instead of positive stamina region. So let's do that. And let's make another interface. Set stamina region. Or maybe even toggle stamina region. That will be better. And positive input boolean, and that's it. Okay, able character. Now we have this toggle stamina region implement function, and if stamina region is positive, then get stamina. We check if it is above 0. So if stamina is positive, wait, if it is positive and it is positive, then basically do nothing. No. Okay, let's go into even toggle stamina region. If we want the stamina to be positive, what we have to do is just take our stamina region, get stamina region, make a branch, and On positive, we want whatever the value is always to be set as positive. So we will just need an absolute value of this float and we'll set stamina region. And that's it. And if we want it to be false, we want to get its absolute value and multiply it by -1. Why I'm saying it in this way, not differently, is because for some reason we might trigger this ability twice in a row and we want to set it positive positive. So making it this way, we don't care how many times we trigger something in a row, we'll always get positive value here and always negative value here. So okay, we could obviously make a different event that would say that our sprint is always depleting certain value and our region might be, you know, altered, but let's test it as is. Okay, now, oh, what did we do? I guess this is important as well. And yeah, so event set sprinting, we need to do it in our ability itself. On ability start, we need to get instigator and set, oh, we already did, okay. So, okay, this should happen. And this region becomes a negative value, which is being multiplied and added. Yeah, this should work. Okay, let's go into event graph and let's go into our tick and let's do a print string of our stamina with a duration of 0.0, so 1 frame, and let's see what's the value. Okay, we definitely done something wrong. 6 max stamina, okay, it's 6. Stamina region is 1. Okay, toggle stamina region. We haven't done this. So get stamina. Now we'll go into our tutorial. Okay, we don't need this anymore. Toggle stamina region. Do we really need that? We could as well just use the sprinting that we have. Yeah. So if we are sprinting, then this will be exactly the opposite. No, wait, if we are sprinting, then we are consuming stamina, so it's times -1, so it's true, so it's this. Yeah, okay, that's right. That should be working now. Yeah, so we're consuming stamina. And now we're regenerating stamina, consuming. but we don't have anything that would stop us from continuing this ability. So let's go into our timeline and let's make another channel condition, which is a custom channel condition. And let's just go back into graph and find custom channel condition. There is an event name because we can have multiple custom channel conditions, and this one has a event name of, let's say, stamina. Copy it and make a switch on the name. The default value is yes, but we are actually using this case instigator get stamina message, and now we got the stamina value, and we can, for example, say that stamina need to be greater than 0.1. So as long as it's greater, then it returns true. We also need to do the same thing on our can ability execute. And do an AND boolean. Now we're checking for both values. Let's go back here and let's test it if we can start sprinting when we run out of stamina, and it will actually get slowed down. Yes. Okay, it works as intended. So we can do this, or we can, for example, yeah, just do this, or we can run another float and make it a remove of stamina based on any other value. I've chosen to make it like this because I don't intend to change the stamina regen speed, but I might want to change max stamina. And we can run it on non-replicated stamina value, and even if by any chance we cheat this value, we'll not cheat the server version of the value. Also keep in mind that we haven't used any event that is replicated running on server or multicast. We don't have to do that at all. The ability itself is taking care of all the replication that we need. If we want to add some custom task like custom event, for example, we might want to run this event only on client, only on server, or client and server. But this entire setup, those conditions and checks, this requires this will be replicated and will run exactly in the same way on the client and on the server. And because we also exposed value, we can now change this value to, let's say, 160, and that means that we can enter sprint a lot faster before we actually gain any much speed, and we can almost immediately start sprinting, and it will also be less sensitive to our change of direction, because our deceleration will slow us down. It will not affect our sprinting that much. Okay, so that's sprinting. This is a passive ability that is channel. It's checking custom conditions, and it runs mostly on the ability itself with just some small help of our character blueprint itself. If we really wanted, instead of using interface calls, like this is the way I usually do it, we could as well do it in here, in the ability itself. We could just, for example, go into ability graph. We could get instigator, just cast to character, and from the character we could get the movement component. and we could just set walk speed directly here in the ability, but I wanted to make parameters for that so I can adjust it later on in different abilities. So yeah, simple as that. This is how you set up your first ability, and this is how it looks like. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. It's just the first of the series, and we'll try to record at least 2-3 episodes per day for the next week or two, and cover as many tasks of the abilities as possible and as many scenarios of different ability uses as I possibly can. And we'll be doing melee combat, dashes, flying, you name it. If you have any requests what kind of abilities we should cover, please let me know down in the comments. And see you guys soon. Bye.